How many nights this week have you found yourself staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., your mind racing despite your exhausted body? If you're over 60, you know this frustration all too well. The prescription sleep aids your doctor offers come with warnings about dependency, morning grogginess, and potential falls. You've tried counting sheep, meditation apps, and expensive mattresses, yet quality sleep remains elusive. The truth is, the solution might be sitting in your kitchen right now. What if I told you that certain foods, consumed in the right sequence and timing, could help you fall asleep faster than most prescription medications? The sleep challenges you face aren't just about getting older, though age does play a role. Your body produces less melatonin naturally, your blood sugar regulation changes, and inflammation can interfere with your sleep cycles. Many of you have experienced major life transitions like retirement, loss of a spouse, or health concerns that create additional stress. Your adult children might suggest sleeping pills, but you're wise to be cautious about adding more medications to your routine. The pharmaceutical approach treats sleep as something to force rather than something to naturally invite. This fundamental misunderstanding has left millions of mature adults trapped in a cycle of poor sleep and daytime fatigue. Tonight, you're going to discover 7 specific foods that work synergistically to create what sleep experts call a cascade effect. Unlike sleeping pills that simply knock you unconscious, these foods work with your body's natural sleep architecture. They address multiple pathways to sleep simultaneously, providing melatonin support, blood sugar stability, inflammation reduction, and neurotransmitter optimization. The best part is that you probably already have most of these foods in your home. These aren't exotic superfoods or expensive supplements, but common items that have been helping people sleep for generations. The key lies in knowing which ones to choose, how to prepare them, and when to consume them for maximum effectiveness. Years of pharmaceutical research and medical experience have revealed that the timing and sequence of these foods is just as important as the foods themselves. When consumed properly, they create a natural progression that signals your brain and body to prepare for restorative sleep. You'll learn about 2 distinct protocols that complement each other perfectly, developed through decades of professional expertise in both pharmacy and nursing. The first approach focuses on establishing the foundation for sleep through 3 carefully selected foods. The second builds upon this foundation with 4 additional foods that deepen and maintain your sleep throughout the night. Together, they form a complete system that addresses every aspect of age-related sleep difficulties. What makes this approach truly remarkable is its safety and sustainability. You won't wake up groggy or dependent on these foods to function. Instead, you'll find yourself naturally falling asleep within minutes of your head hitting the pillow. Your sleep will be deeper, more restorative, and you'll wake up feeling genuinely refreshed. Many people report improvements within the first few nights, with optimal results developing over the course of a week. The beauty of this natural approach is that it actually improves with consistency, unlike medications that often require increasing doses. You'll rediscover what peaceful, uninterrupted sleep feels like, and your days will transform as a result. To help you see this more clearly, I want to tell you a story that captures this perfectly. On a quiet Tuesday evening, 2 separate conversations were taking place that would change the lives of 4 people struggling with the same sleep challenges you face. At a local community center, a recently widowed woman named Janet was finally ready to admit that her sleepless nights were affecting every aspect of her life. Meanwhile, across town at an independent senior living facility, a frustrated man named Carlos was pacing the hallways, dreading another night of tossing and turning. Janet, at 66, had been attending the evening wellness meetings at the community center for several months, but tonight felt different. She had dark circles under her eyes and that familiar exhaustion that comes from too many restless nights. Bradley, a 72-year-old retired pharmacist who had become something of a mentor figure in their group, noticed her distress immediately. His warm smile and gentle manner had always made people feel comfortable sharing their struggles, and tonight would prove to be no exception. If you're finding value in what you're learning, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more practical wisdom on aging with dignity. At the same time, Ruth was settling into her favorite armchair in her apartment when she heard the familiar sound of footsteps in the hallway. As a former intensive care nurse with 40 years of experience, she had developed an intuitive sense about when someone was in distress. Carlos, her 69-year-old neighbor, had been struggling with sleep issues since moving to the facility 6 months ago, and his nightly pacing had become a routine she recognized all too well. Janet shifted uncomfortably in her chair as the evening wellness meeting began to wind down. The other participants were gathering their things and making small talk, but she remained seated, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. Bradley noticed her hesitation and approached with the gentle confidence that comes from years of helping people navigate their health concerns. "Janet, you seem troubled tonight. Would you like to talk about what's on your mind?" he asked, settling into the chair beside her. She looked up at him with tired eyes that spoke volumes before she even opened her mouth. "Bradley, I don't know what to do anymore. Since David passed away 6 months ago, I just can't sleep. I lie there for hours, thinking about everything and nothing at all. My doctor wants to prescribe sleeping pills, but I've heard so many scary stories about people becoming dependent on them or falling because they're so groggy." Her voice carried the weight of exhaustion that had become her constant companion. Bradley nodded with understanding, remembering his own struggles with sleep after retiring from his career as a pharmacist. "I know exactly what you're going through, Janet. When I first retired, I thought I'd sleep like a baby without all that work stress. But the opposite happened. My mind wouldn't shut off, and I was waking up several times a night feeling anxious about things I couldn't even name." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The interesting thing is, during my years in pharmacy, I learned that our bodies have natural mechanisms for creating sleep, and sometimes we just need to give them the right tools." Janet leaned forward slightly, her interest piqued. "What kind of tools? I've tried warm milk, chamomile tea, even those expensive magnesium supplements my daughter bought me. Nothing seems to work for more than a night or two." The frustration in her voice was evident, but there was also a glimmer of hope that maybe Bradley had discovered something she hadn't tried yet. "Well, that's where my pharmaceutical background really came in handy," Bradley replied with a knowing smile. "You see, most people try one thing at a time, but sleep is actually a complex process that involves multiple systems in your body. What I discovered is that certain foods, when combined in the right way and consumed at the right time, can create what I call a sleep cascade. It's like giving your body a gentle, natural sequence of signals that it's time to rest." Bradley stood up and walked over to the small kitchenette area of the community center, gesturing for Janet to follow. "Let me show you what I mean. The first thing I learned about was tart cherry juice, and I emphasize tart, not sweet. There's a world of difference between the two." He opened the small refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of tart cherry juice, holding it up so Janet could see the label clearly. "Now, here's what most people don't know," Bradley continued, his pharmacist expertise shining through. "Tart cherries contain concentrated melatonin precursors, which are the building blocks your brain uses to create its own sleep hormone. Sweet cherries barely have any of these compounds, but tart cherries are loaded with them. The key is to drink about 240 milliliters, which is roughly 1 cup. And here's the crucial part that I learned through trial and error. You need to warm it up." Janet looked puzzled. "Warm it up? I've never heard of anyone drinking warm cherry juice before." She watched as Bradley poured some of the juice into a small saucepan and placed it on the community center's hot plate. "That's exactly the reaction I had when I first read about it in a pharmaceutical journal, Bradley chuckled. But warming the juice actually activates additional compounds that enhance absorption. Think of it like this. When you warm the juice, you're essentially creating a more bioavailable form of those melatonin precursors. Your body can use them more efficiently, and you'll start feeling the effects within about 30 minutes instead of waiting an hour or more. As the juice warmed, filling the small kitchen area with its tart, fruity aroma, Bradley reached into a cabinet and pulled out a container of steel-cut oats and a small jar of what appeared to be cinnamon. The second component of my sleep protocol is steel-cut oatmeal with Ceylon cinnamon. Now, this might seem like an odd bedtime snack, but there's solid science behind it. Janet watched as Bradley measured out a small portion of the oats into a bowl. I have to admit, I'm skeptical about eating oatmeal right before bed. Wouldn't that be too heavy and keep me awake? She asked, genuinely curious about his reasoning. That's a great question, and it shows you're thinking like someone who understands that digestion and sleep are connected, Bradley replied approvingly. The key is the type of oats and the portion size. Steel-cut oats are different from instant oats because they create a sustained glucose release rather than a quick spike and crash. When your blood sugar crashes in the middle of the night, usually around 3 a.m., that's what causes those frustrating middle-of-the-night awakenings. He sprinkled the Ceylon cinnamon over the small bowl of oats and added a bit of hot water to create a small, manageable portion. Ceylon cinnamon is crucial here because it contains specific compounds that help regulate your circadian rhythms. Regular cassia cinnamon, which is what most people have in their spice cabinet, doesn't have these same properties. Ceylon cinnamon actually helps synchronize your internal body clock, making it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep. Janet nodded thoughtfully as she absorbed this information. So the oatmeal prevents those middle-of-the-night wake-ups, and the special cinnamon helps regulate when I should be sleeping. She was beginning to see how these foods might work together in ways she had never considered. Exactly right, Bradley confirmed, pleased that she was grasping the concept. But we're not done yet. The third component is what really ties everything together. He opened the community center's small refrigerator again and retrieved a container of Greek yogurt and a jar of raw honey. This combination is pure genius when you understand the biochemistry behind it. Bradley spooned exactly 3 tablespoons of Greek yogurt into a small bowl and measured out 1 teaspoon of raw honey. Greek yogurt provides 2 crucial elements for sleep: tryptophan, which is the amino acid precursor to serotonin and eventually melatonin, and casein proteins. The casein proteins are what make this special because they're slow-release proteins that continue to provide amino acids to your brain throughout the night. I've heard of tryptophan from turkey at Thanksgiving, Janet said with a slight smile, but I don't understand how the honey fits in. She watched as Bradley drizzled the golden honey over the yogurt, creating an appealing contrast of textures and colors. The raw honey is like the key that unlocks the door, Bradley explained, his pharmaceutical background evident in his precise explanation. Tryptophan has to cross what's called the blood-brain barrier to be effective, but it competes with other amino acids for transport. The small amount of glucose in raw honey creates an insulin response that allows tryptophan to cross that barrier more efficiently. It's not enough sugar to disrupt your sleep, but it's exactly the right amount to transport the tryptophan where it needs to go. Janet was fascinated by the scientific precision of Bradley's approach. So all 3 of these foods work together? You don't just eat one or the other? She asked, wanting to make sure she understood the complete protocol. That's exactly right, and the timing is crucial too, Bradley emphasized. You consume all 3 in sequence, starting 45 minutes before your intended bedtime. First, the warm, tart cherry juice, then the steel-cut oatmeal with Ceylon cinnamon about 10 minutes later, and finally, the Greek yogurt with raw honey another. 10 minutes after that, this creates what I call the sleep cascade effect. Bradley walked over to a small notebook he kept in his bag and showed Janet a simple chart he had created. See? The tart cherry juice gets your melatonin production started, the oatmeal stabilizes your blood sugar for the entire night, and the yogurt and honey combination ensures sustained tryptophan delivery to your brain. Each component builds on the others, creating a natural progression towards sleep. It sounds almost too good to be true, Janet admitted, though her skepticism was mixed with genuine hope. How long did it take for you to notice a difference when you started using this approach? She studied Bradley's chart, trying to memorize. The timing and sequence. I started noticing improvements on the third night, Bradley replied honestly. The first 2 nights, I felt more relaxed, but I wasn't sure if it was psychological or if the foods were actually working. But by the third night, I was falling asleep within 20 minutes of getting into bed, and I wasn't waking up at 3 a.m. anymore. After a week of consistency, I was sleeping through the night regularly for the first time in months. Janet felt a surge of optimism that she hadn't experienced in months. Bradley, I have to ask, why aren't doctors recommending this instead of sleeping pills? If this works as well as you say it does, wouldn't more people know about it? Her question reflected the natural skepticism of someone who had been disappointed by other sleep solutions. Bradley sat back down beside her, his expression becoming more serious. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The truth is, doctors are trained to prescribe medications, and pharmaceutical companies make billions of dollars from sleep aids. Foods can't be patented, so there's no financial incentive to research or promote them extensively. But the research does exist if you know where to look for it. During my years as a pharmacist, I had access to journals and databases that most people never see. He continued, what really convinced me wasn't just my own experience, but watching other people in situations similar to yours. I've quietly shared this protocol with dozens of people over the past few years, and the success rate has been remarkable. People who had been taking prescription sleep aids for months or even years were able to transition to this natural approach and actually sleep better than they had on medication. Janet felt tears welling up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. I can't tell you how much this means to me, Bradley. I've been feeling so desperate, and my family keeps pushing me to just take the pills the doctor offered. But something inside me kept resisting that option. I want to try your approach tonight, if that's okay with you. Of course it's okay, Bradley replied warmly. In fact, let me write down the exact measurements and timing for you. He pulled out a piece of paper and began writing in his careful pharmacist's handwriting. Tart cherry juice, 240 milliliter warmed. Consume at 45 minutes before bedtime. Steel-cut oatmeal with Ceylon cinnamon, small bowl, consume 35 minutes before bedtime. Greek yogurt with raw honey, 3 tablespoons yogurt, 1 teaspoon honey, consume 25 minutes before bedtime. As Janet carefully folded the paper and placed it in her purse, Bradley added one final piece of advice. Remember, consistency is key. Your body needs time to adjust to this new routine, so don't give up if the first night isn't perfect. Most people see gradual improvement over 3 to 5 days, with optimal results after a week of following the protocol. Exactly as I've outlined. The community center was now empty, except for the 2 of them, and Janet realized how much time had passed during their conversation. But for the first time in months, she felt excited about going home and preparing for bedtime. Bradley, I don't know how to thank you enough. You've given me something I thought I had lost forever, hope for a good night's sleep. As they gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, Bradley smiled with the satisfaction of someone who had been able to share knowledge that could truly change another person's life. Janet, helping you sleep better helps me sleep better too. There's nothing more rewarding than knowing that decades of pharmaceutical experience can be used to help people avoid the very medications I use to dispense. What strikes me most about Janet and Bradley's conversation is how it illustrates a fundamental truth about aging and health challenges. Often, the solutions we need aren't found in the latest medical innovations or expensive treatments, but in the accumulated wisdom and experience of people who have walked similar paths. Bradley's pharmaceutical background gave him access to research and understanding that most people never encounter, but his willingness to share that knowledge freely made all the difference for Janet. The beauty of their interaction lies not just in the specific foods Bradley recommended, but in the way he approached sleep as a complex biological process that could be supported naturally. Too often, we're conditioned to think that aging means accepting more medications and more side effects. But Bradley's approach demonstrates that understanding how our bodies work can lead us to solutions that are both effective and sustainable. Notice how Bradley didn't just hand Janet a list of foods and send her on her way. He took the time to explain the science behind each component, helping her understand why the protocol works, rather than asking her to follow it blindly. This educational approach is crucial because it gives people confidence in the solution and helps them stick with it, even when results aren't immediate. If you're finding this information helpful and want to see how the story continues, please subscribe to our channel for more evidence-based approaches to the challenges of aging gracefully. The precision with which Bradley outlined the timing, measurements, and sequence of these 3 foods reflects years of pharmaceutical training applied to natural solutions. This level of detail isn't accidental. It's what separates effective natural protocols from the generic advice that often fails to produce results. To make this clearer, listen to this other story that was unfolding at exactly the same time Janet and Bradley were having their conversation. Ruth had been settling into her evening routine when she heard the familiar sound of restless footsteps echoing through the hallway of her independent senior living facility. As a former intensive care nurse with 4 decades of experience, she had developed an almost supernatural ability to recognize when someone was in distress, even through apartment walls. Carlos had been pacing the same stretch of hallway for the past 20 minutes, his frustration growing with each step. At 69, he had moved to the facility 6 months ago after his wife passed away, hoping that the community environment would help him adjust to living alone. Instead, he found himself more isolated than ever, especially at night when sleep eluded him completely. The walls seemed to close in during those long, dark hours, and tonight felt particularly unbearable. Ruth opened her apartment door and stepped into the hallway, her gentle presence immediately catching Carlos's attention. "Carlos, honey, you look like you're carrying the weight of the world tonight. Would you like to come in for some tea? I was just about to make some myself." Her invitation was warm and genuine, carrying the kind of authority that comes from years of helping people through their most vulnerable moments. Carlos paused mid-step, looking somewhat embarrassed to be caught in his nightly ritual. "Ruth, I'm sorry if I've been disturbing you with my pacing. I just can't seem to settle down lately. Every night it's the same thing. I get into bed exhausted, but my mind starts racing, and before I know it, it's 3 a.m., and I'm wide awake staring at the ceiling." He ran his hand through his graying hair, the fatigue evident in every line of his face. "Oh, sweetheart, you're not disturbing me at all," Ruth replied, gently guiding him toward her apartment. "In fact, your situation reminds me so much of what I used to see in the hospital. You'd be amazed how many patients struggled with sleep issues, and over the years I developed what I like to call my nurse's toolkit for natural sleep solutions. Come on in and let me share some things that might help you." Ruth's apartment was warm and inviting, filled with the comfortable furnishings and soft lighting that spoke of someone who understood how environment affects well-being. She gestured for Carlos to sit in a comfortable armchair while she moved toward her small kitchen area. "Now, Carlos, tell me what you've tried so far for your sleep troubles. I want to make sure I don't suggest something you've already attempted." Carlos settled into the chair gratefully, feeling more relaxed than he had in hours. Well, I've tried the usual things: warm milk, reading until I'm tired, even some of those over-the-counter sleep aids. My doctor mentioned prescription sleeping pills, but honestly, Ruth, I've heard too many stories about people becoming dependent on them or having terrible side effects. I'd rather find a natural solution if one exists. Ruth nodded approvingly as she began preparing something in the kitchen. You're absolutely right to be cautious about sleeping medications, especially at our age. What most people don't realize is that the body has its own sophisticated systems for creating sleep, and sometimes we just need to support those systems rather than override them with chemicals. She returned to the living area carrying a tray with several items that Carlos didn't immediately recognize. During my years in intensive care, I learned that sleep isn't just about being tired. It's about creating the right biochemical environment in your body, Ruth explained, settling into the chair across from Carlos. I want to share 4 specific foods with you that I discovered through my medical career. Each one addresses a different aspect of sleep difficulties, and when used together, they create what I call a comprehensive sleep support system. Ruth reached for a small container of what appeared to be a golden-colored powder and a carton of almond milk. The first thing I want to show you is something I learned about when I was working with patients who had inflammatory conditions that interfered with their sleep. It's called golden milk, and it's made with turmeric, warm almond milk, and just a pinch of black pepper. Carlos watched with interest as Ruth measured half a teaspoon of turmeric into a small saucepan and added about a cup of almond milk. Now, Carlos, this isn't just some trendy health drink. Turmeric contains a compound called curcumin, which has the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, but only when it's combined with black pepper. The black pepper contains piperine, which increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. I've heard of turmeric for joint pain, Carlos said, but I never knew it could help with sleep. How does that work exactly? He was genuinely curious about Ruth's scientific approach, which reminded him of the thorough way she had explained medical procedures to worried family members during his wife's hospital stays. Ruth added a tiny pinch of black pepper to the mixture and began stirring it gently over low heat. Curcumin reduces inflammation throughout your body, including neuroinflammation in your brain. When your brain is inflamed, it interferes with the normal sleep-wake cycles and prevents you from entering the deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. The warm almond milk provides magnesium, which is nature's muscle relaxant, helping your entire body release the physical tension that can keep you awake. As the golden milk warmed, filling the small kitchen with its earthy, comforting aroma, Ruth reached for a small bowl filled with what looked like green nuts. The second component of my sleep toolkit is something that surprised me when I first learned about it during my cardiac nursing days. These are shelled pistachios, and they're absolutely remarkable for sleep support. Carlos looked at the pistachios with some skepticism. Ruth, I have to ask, aren't nuts supposed to give you energy? It seems counterintuitive to eat them before bed. He picked up a few of the pistachios, examining their pale green color and smooth texture. That's exactly what I thought when I first heard about this from a sleep researcher who was consulting with our cardiac unit, Ruth chuckled. But pistachios are unique among nuts because they contain the highest levels of melatonin found in any nut variety. About 30 grams, which is roughly 25 pistachios, provides a significant amount of natural melatonin along with protein that prevents those hunger-related middle-of-the-night awakenings. Ruth measured out exactly 25 pistachios into a small bowl. The key detail here is that they must be pre-shelled. If you're cracking pistachio shells right before bed, the jaw activity actually stimulates your nervous system and can make you more alert. Pre-shelled pistachios give you all the sleep benefits without the stimulating activity of shell cracking. I never would have thought about the shell-cracking issue, Carlos admitted, impressed by Ruth's attention to detail. It makes perfect sense when you explain it that way. What's the third thing in your toolkit? He was beginning to feel hopeful that Ruth's methodical approach might finally provide the solution he'd been searching for. Ruth walked over to her refrigerator and retrieved half of an avocado and a small container of what appeared to be pink-colored salt. This combination might seem unusual for bedtime, but it addresses a crucial aspect of sleep that most people never consider: the role of healthy fats and electrolyte balance in maintaining steady brain chemistry throughout the night. She placed the avocado half on a small plate and sprinkled it lightly with the pink salt. Avocados contain monounsaturated fats that provide sustained energy for your brain during sleep. When your brain doesn't have adequate fat reserves, it can wake you up in the middle of the night searching for fuel. The pink Himalayan salt contains specific trace minerals that balance your electrolytes and regulate your sleep-wake cycles. Carlos studied the simple preparation with growing appreciation for Ruth's scientific approach. I've been avoiding fats before bed because I thought they would be too heavy and keep me awake. Are you saying that's actually counterproductive? He was learning that many of his assumptions about sleep nutrition had been completely backwards. Exactly right, Ruth confirmed. I learned this working with patients who had electrolyte imbalances that severely disrupted their sleep patterns. The minerals in pink Himalayan salt, particularly potassium, magnesium, and calcium, work together to regulate the electrical activity in your nervous system. Regular table salt doesn't have these trace minerals, so it can't provide the same sleep-supporting benefits. Ruth returned to her kitchen area and began preparing what appeared to be a tea blend, measuring herbs from 2 different containers. The fourth and final component of my sleep toolkit is a tea blend that I used extensively in hospital settings when patients needed natural relaxation support. It's a combination of chamomile and lemon balm, steeped for exactly 10 minutes to extract the active compounds. I've tried chamomile tea before, Carlos said, but it never seemed to make much difference. Maybe I wasn't preparing it correctly? He watched as Ruth measured 1 teaspoon each of dried chamomile flowers and lemon balm leaves into a tea strainer. The preparation method makes all the difference, Ruth explained, pouring hot water over the herb mixture. Chamomile contains a compound called apigenin that binds to specific receptors in your brain to promote sleepiness. But apigenin is only released with proper steeping time and water temperature. Most people steep chamomile for 3 to 5 minutes, but you need a full 10 minutes to extract the sleep-promoting compounds. Ruth set a timer for 10 minutes and continued her explanation. Lemon balm enhances the effects of chamomile by increasing GABA production in your brain. GABA is your body's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's what tells your nervous system to calm down and prepare for rest. The combination of chamomile and lemon balm creates a synergistic effect that's much more powerful than either herb. Used alone, as they waited for the tea to finish steeping, Carlos reflected on everything Ruth had shared. Ruth, this is incredibly detailed and scientific. How did you learn all of this? I mean, I know you were a nurse, but this level of knowledge about sleep nutrition seems beyond what most medical professionals would know. Ruth smiled with the satisfaction of someone who had spent a lifetime learning and applying knowledge to help others. During my 40 years in intensive care, I saw thousands of patients struggle with sleep issues that medications couldn't fully address. I started researching natural alternatives because I could see that the pharmaceutical approach often created more problems than it solved. I attended conferences, read research journals, and most importantly, I experimented with these approaches myself and observed the results in patients who were willing to try them. The timer chimed, and Ruth carefully removed the tea strainer, revealing a golden amber liquid with a soothing herbal aroma. The key to making this work, Carlos, is understanding that these 4 foods need to be consumed in a specific sequence and timing. You start with the golden milk, 60 minutes before your intended bedtime. Then you eat the pistachios at 45 minutes before bed. The avocado with pink salt goes at 30 minutes before bed. Finally, you sip the chamomile lemon balm tea during the last 15 minutes before you get into bed. Carlos was taking mental notes, trying to memorize the sequence and timing. That's quite a bit more complex than the simple solutions I've been trying, but I can see how each component builds on the others. The timing allows each food to start, working as the previous one is taking effect, creating a progression towards sleep rather than just hoping one thing will work. Exactly, Ruth confirmed, clearly pleased that Carlos understood the systematic approach. Each food addresses a different pathway to sleep. The golden milk reduces inflammation and provides muscle relaxation. The pistachios supply natural melatonin and sustained protein. The avocado and salt maintain brain chemistry and electrolyte balance. The tea blend enhances neurotransmitter production for deep relaxation. Together, they create multiple layers of sleep support. Ruth began writing down the protocol on a piece of paper, her nursing background evident in her clear, precise handwriting. Golden milk with turmeric, 60 minutes before bed. 25 shelled pistachios, 45 minutes before bed. Half avocado with pink Himalayan salt, 30 minutes before bed. Chamomile lemon balm tea blend, 15 minutes before bed, sipped slowly while preparing for sleep. Carlos studied the paper carefully, feeling more optimistic about his sleep prospects than he had in months. Ruth, I have to ask, have you seen this approach work for other people, or is this something you've only tried yourself? He wanted to understand the track record of success before committing to what seemed like a fairly involved bedtime routine. Oh, Carlos, I've quietly shared this protocol with dozens of people over the years, both during my nursing career and here at the facility, Ruth replied. The success rate has been remarkable. People who had been struggling with sleep issues for months or even years found significant improvement within the first week. What I love about this approach is that it doesn't just knock you unconscious like sleeping pills do, it actually improves the quality of your sleep architecture. Ruth continued, the beautiful thing about working with your body's natural sleep systems is that the benefits compound over time. Unlike medications that often require increasing doses, this natural approach becomes more effective with consistency. People report not just falling asleep faster, but having deeper, more restorative sleep and waking up feeling genuinely refreshed rather than groggy. Carlos felt a surge of gratitude toward Ruth for sharing such detailed, thoughtful guidance. Ruth, I can't tell you how much this means to me. I've been feeling so frustrated and hopeless about my sleep situation. The fact that you've taken the time to explain not just what to do, but why each component works, gives me real confidence that this might be the solution I've been looking for. Carlos, helping you sleep better is truly my pleasure, Ruth replied warmly. After 4 decades of caring for people in their most vulnerable moments, I've learned that sometimes the most powerful healing comes not from complex medical interventions, but from understanding and supporting the body's natural wisdom. Sleep is fundamental to everything else. Your mood, your immune system, your cognitive function, your emotional resilience. As Carlos prepared to return to his apartment, Ruth handed him the written protocol along with a small container of the chamomile lemon balm tea blend. I want you to have enough of this tea blend to get started tonight. Remember, consistency is crucial for the first week as your body adjusts to this new routine. Don't be discouraged if the first night isn't perfect. Most people see gradual improvement over 3 to 5 days. Standing at Ruth's door, Carlos felt transformed from the restless, frustrated man who had been pacing the hallway an hour earlier. Ruth, you've given me something I thought I had lost. Hope for peaceful nights and restful sleep. I promise. I'll follow your protocol exactly as you've outlined it, and I'll let you know how it works. As Ruth watched Carlos walk confidently back to his apartment, she felt the deep satisfaction that comes from using decades of professional knowledge to genuinely improve someone's quality of life. This was why she had become a nurse in the first place, to help people heal and thrive using the most effective approaches available, whether they came from medical textbooks or the accumulated wisdom of natural healing traditions. What strikes me most profoundly about Ruth and Carlos's interaction is how it demonstrates the incredible value of experiential knowledge combined with scientific understanding. Ruth's 40 years in intensive care nursing gave her insights that go far beyond what most people learn about sleep and health. She saw firsthand how pharmaceutical interventions often created dependency and side effects, motivating her to seek natural alternatives that worked with the body's inherent healing mechanisms. The precision of Ruth's four-component protocol reveals the depth of her understanding about sleep as a complex biological process. Notice how she addressed multiple pathways simultaneously: inflammation reduction, melatonin production, sustained nutrition, electrolyte balance, and neurotransmitter optimization. This comprehensive approach is what distinguishes effective, natural protocols from the single-solution remedies that often fail to provide lasting results. Ruth's emphasis on timing and sequence reflects her clinical experience with how the body processes different nutrients and compounds. The 60-minute progression she outlined allows each component to begin working as the previous one reaches peak effectiveness, creating what she described as a natural cascade towards sleep. This level of detail comes from years of observing what works and what doesn't in real-world applications. If you found Ruth's scientific approach to natural sleep support helpful, please hit that like button to help others discover these evidence-based solutions. The combination of Carlos's openness to learning and Ruth's willingness to share her professional knowledge created the perfect conditions for a life-changing solution to emerge from what started as a chance encounter in a hallway. Now that you've heard both Janet and Bradley's story at the community center and Carlos and Ruth's conversation at the senior living facility, you have access to a complete 7-food protocol that represents decades of combined pharmaceutical and medical expertise. These aren't random folk remedies or internet health trends. They're evidence-based solutions that have helped countless people reclaim their nights and transform their days. Let me consolidate everything you've learned into a comprehensive methodology that you can implement starting tonight. The 7 foods work synergistically when consumed in the proper sequence and timing, creating multiple pathways to natural restorative sleep. Bradley's 3-component foundation protocol begins 45 minutes before bedtime with tart cherry juice. Specifically, 240 milliliters of tart cherry juice warmed to activate additional compounds that enhance absorption. This provides concentrated melatonin precursors that signal your brain to prepare for sleep within 30 minutes. 10 minutes later, you consume a small bowl of steel-cut oatmeal with Ceylon cinnamon. This combination creates sustained glucose release, preventing the blood sugar crashes that cause those frustrating 3 a.m. awakenings, while the Ceylon cinnamon regulates your circadian rhythms. Another 10 minutes later, you eat 3 tablespoons of Greek yogurt with 1 teaspoon of raw honey. The Greek yogurt provides tryptophan and slow-release casein proteins, while the raw honey provides just enough glucose to transport tryptophan across the blood-brain barrier efficiently. Ruth's 4-component enhancement protocol begins 60 minutes before bedtime and works beautifully alongside Bradley's foundation. You start with golden milk, made from warm almond milk, half a teaspoon of turmeric, and a pinch of black pepper. This combination allows curcumin to cross the blood-brain barrier, reducing inflammation that interferes with deep sleep cycles, while The almond milk provides magnesium for muscle relaxation. 15 minutes later, you eat 30 grams of shelled pistachios. About 25 nuts that must be pre-shelled to avoid stimulating jaw activity. Pistachios contain the highest levels of melatonin among all nuts, plus protein that prevents hunger-related awakenings. Another 15 minutes later, you consume half a medium avocado with a pinch of pink Himalayan salt. The healthy, monounsaturated fats maintain steady brain chemistry overnight, while the specific minerals in pink salt balance electrolytes that regulate sleep-wake cycles. Finally, 15 minutes before bed, you sip a chamomile lemon balm tea blend using 1 teaspoon each herb, steeped for exactly 10 minutes. Chamomile contains a pigeonine that binds to brain receptors promoting sleepiness, while lemon balm enhances GABA production for deeper relaxation. The 10-minute steeping time is crucial for extracting the active compounds that make this combination effective. What makes this approach truly remarkable is how it works with your body's natural sleep architecture, rather than forcing unconsciousness like prescription medications. The sequence creates multiple layers of support: immediate melatonin activation, sustained blood sugar stability, inflammatory reduction, and neurotransmitter optimization. Unlike sleeping pills that often leave you groggy and dependent, these foods actually improve your sleep quality while supporting your overall health. The timing and sequence create what both Bradley and Ruth described as a cascade effect. Each component begins working as the previous one reaches peak effectiveness. This creates a natural progression towards sleep that feels gentle and sustainable rather than jarring or artificial. Most people report falling asleep within minutes rather than hours, experiencing deeper sleep and waking up feeling genuinely refreshed. You can expect gradual improvement over the first 3 to 5 days as your body adjusts to this new routine, with optimal results developing after a week of consistency. The beauty of this natural approach is that it becomes more effective over time. Unlike medications that often require increasing doses, you'll rediscover what peaceful, uninterrupted sleep feels like, and your days will transform as a result. Think about your own sleep challenges right now. Are you lying awake at 2 a.m. like Janet was, feeling desperate and exhausted? Are you pacing hallways like Carlos, dreading another restless night? Or perhaps you're already taking prescription sleep aids, but worried about dependency and side effects? This 7-food protocol offers you a scientifically backed alternative that addresses the root causes of sleep difficulties rather than simply masking symptoms. How are you going to apply these lessons to your own life? Will you start with Bradley's 3-component foundation or dive into Ruth's comprehensive 4-component enhancement? The choice is yours. But the key is to start tonight and maintain consistency. Your future self, the one who sleeps peacefully and wakes up refreshed, is waiting for you to take this first step. The wisdom that Janet and Carlos discovered didn't come from expensive sleep clinics or complex medical interventions. It came from the accumulated knowledge of people who had faced similar challenges and found solutions through understanding how the body naturally creates sleep. You have access to that same wisdom now, and the power to transform your nights and your days lies in your willingness to embrace these natural, time-tested approaches. If this content has inspired you to take control of your sleep naturally and reclaim the restful nights you deserve, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more evidence-based solutions to the challenges of aging with dignity and purpose.